All right, this is going to be the spoiler review for Joker. The non-spoiler review was uploaded yesterday to World of Geekdom, so if you have not seen the film yet and you want to hear my thoughts on it as to whether or not you should see it, is the movie for you, and what kind of movie is it, how does it compare to other comic book movies, if you could even call it that, that video is available right now on World of Geekdom, so check that out before you see the movie. So this video is going to be for those who have already seen the movie. So we're going to go right into spoilers here. So I'm going to give y'all a few minutes to click off if you don't want to be spoiled, or a few seconds, not a few minutes. I'm not going to be here for a long time. So, all right, click off now if you don't want to be spoiled. Here we go. So, the Joker, or Joker, that's what it's really called, Joker. First of all, in my non-spoiler review, I did accidentally call him Arthur Dent once or twice. I think it was one time. No, it's not Arthur Dent, it's Arthur Fleck. I for some reason I thought about Harvey Dent. But in the non-spoiler, I talked about Joaquin Phoenix's performance in the movie, and really from the beginning you can really see where it was powerful, but his performance at the end when he goes on the talk show with Robert De Niro, I think was great. And I love the build up to it, because as you're watching the movie, you're not really sure what is reality and what isn't. So for a time there, and keep in mind, when I saw this movie, I didn't read any spoilers or the script or any of that stuff. So for a time there, I thought maybe the whole invitation to the show was fake. I thought he was going to show up to the show and shoot the place up. Like, I actually thought he was going to do that. You know what I mean? And just crash, and it was a different guest. But no, the movie, it didn't happen that way. And the reason why I even felt that way is because, I got to be real with you, yo, they got me. They totally got me. The scene with the girl, like that relationship he has with his neighbor, how, he's following her around, and she shows up at his door, and she's like, were you following me yesterday? And he was like, yeah. Like, that's creepy as hell, right? In real life, no woman would really go for that, or at least very few women would. But then the movie, when he goes up to her house, and that one scene, he just starts kissing her after he shoots those guys in the subway. When I saw that scene, I was like, okay, well, I didn't think much of it. I'm like thinking, okay, she probably is just crazy like him. She's probably got similar issues. She's a single mother, obviously. I thought maybe she was just lonely and crazy, and that's why she dug him, and maybe they had like a cool chemistry. And I thought maybe she would be his only hope at truly achieving peace. I thought that might be where they go with the movie. And then they have the scene where she comes home, and he's in the living room, and she's like, I remember you the other day, and like all this stuff. And the movie gives you clues that it was an illusion and it was in his own head. But man, when it hit me, I was like, whoa, like it really hit me. It was sort of like watching a Chris Nolan movie and seeing the reveals in those films. You know what I mean? Like Insomnia or Inception or whatever. I love that so very much. I love it. And I love that character too, how she was freaked out by him. Now, the whole story with the mother to me was great, because the movie pushes and pulls. Because for a while there, I really thought he was going to be Thomas Wayne's son. I thought it would be a great little story if in this version of the Joker, it was like, Bruce Wayne and, the Joker, or Joker, Arthur, are half brothers. I think that would be something different. It could work. And it turns out that was actually not true, because Thomas Wayne tells him, like, dude, your mother was crazy. And throughout the movie, again, they give you hints of this, because she's writing letters to Thomas Wayne, and Thomas Wayne's not responding. Now, obviously, people write fan mail to celebrities all the time, and they never respond. That's just a common thing. That's not anything crazy. But the way that she was like so, she was so driven to write these letters, it just kind of came off to me like there was something wrong with her, because no sane person can sit there and write X amount of letters to a celebrity and they don't get back to them, or to a famous person, not really a celebrity, a famous person, politician, whatever, and they don't get back to them during a certain number of time. And it's like, well, you have to give up at some point. But the movie implied that she was writing these letters for months and months about his son and this and that. And you would think, being a celebrity or being a famous person, or a politician especially, he would have like contacted her and paid her off if that really was her kid. Turns out that she lied to him. And so the scene where he kills her, I'm not saying she deserves it, because I don't think she deserved that. The character didn't really deserve that. But he obviously, there's that scene where he grabs from the clerk, he grabs the documents that have his adoption paperwork. So when Thomas Wayne tells him, "Hey, you're adopted," and then he goes and reads them and he finds out it's true. It's like, well, I've hated Thomas Wayne all this time, thinking that he's the father that abandoned me, when no, like, my mother lied to me and allowed me to get abused, and she's so messed up that she doesn't even remember it. And then so he, you would think he would have made peace with her and just not killed her, but he did. He smothered her, and it was really an uncomfortable scene, because when he's doing it, like, you hear the beep, 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 beep. It was, it really was powerful. And then he looks out the window, like, this sort of weird moment of clarity and peace that, he now knows the truth and he's okay with that. And then when he tells her, like, "Oh, well, there's nothing wrong with me. You made it seem like my laughter was not normal." Well, no, the reality is that laughter is a nervous tic that came from trauma of when he was a kid. That's brilliant stuff. There's a lot of psychologically accurate things in this movie, which is why I thought it was so great. I mean, it's an amazing movie because there was so much like actual real world psychology. Obviously, not everybody's as crazy to do what this guy did, and this kind of stuff doesn't really happen in the real world as often as people would make you think it does. But there are situations in life where you deal with a certain kind of trauma and it manifests later in life in different ways. It's like a version of compartmentalization. Case in point, this dude got abused as a kid. He blocked it out of his memory. He compartmentalized it. He totally blocked it out. That was brilliant to me. And yet it all manifested in that weird laugh. And it's perfect for the Joker character. Even though this is not the canon origin of the Joker character, if it was, it would actually make a lot of sense. It really would. Based on this version of the Joker. Obviously, the Jack Nicholson, Cesar Romero, those are all different. This version, I think, makes a lot of sense, with that. Now, when he took out the dude in his apartment, though, when the midget and the guy came over, the little person, whatever, they came over, that was crazy. Because his whole thing, I feel, is he doesn't like being screwed around with. That's the whole character of Arthur, and everybody screwed around with him. His former boss. I like when he dropped the gun in the kid's, when he was at the hospital. Why would you take a gun to a kid's hospital, bro? Like, leave it in the car or something. Like, come on. I mean, he's a dumbass for that. But anyways, no, and like, he ends up killing the bald guy or whatever in his house in a very violent scene. Very, very Heath Ledger Joker-ish. Like, remember the scene in Dark Knight where he takes, Spawn's face pretty much, and, well, it wasn't really Spawn, it was one of his henchmen, and fucking puts the fucking pencil and, he smashes his head into it. "I'm gonna make this pencil disappear," or whatever. That whole thing was, and when I say Spawn, I'm talking about Michael J. White. He played, for those who don't know, he played Spawn in the old 97 Spawn movie. But anyways, it was like that, where he's just this ferocious guy, and I think Jared Leto's Joker, I mean, I think he was trying, but it didn't really have that much ferociousness. He came off just more like a criminal, and obviously they're all criminals, but I mean, he came off more like a mob boss, which he was, as opposed to the truly psychotic Joker. And obviously I like both versions, the mob boss and the psycho. But in this movie, though, it just seemed a lot more real. He didn't become the Joker overnight. This was a long process of trauma and of him discovering his past and discovering his mom had lied to him. Thomas Wayne had been sort of pedestaled by her, and sort of, in a way, he hated Thomas Wayne. Not really in a way. He did hate Thomas Wayne. And yet, at the end of the day, Thomas Wayne didn't even do anything to him. But Thomas Wayne was a symbol of society and the way they treated people like him. You know what I mean? Mentally ill people, and the way they abused it, and how life is rough. But at the end of the day, the thing that's really interesting about this character is that he's essentially kind of a bitch, in the sense that life is tough, and he blames, like, bureaucrats and all that. He seems to blame everybody but himself for his own actions. Like, even when he shot those guys in the in the subway, what irritated me about that is, I know why he shot them. They were bullying him. They were literally physically assaulting him, and he defended himself. If he had pleaded his case and said, "These guys jumped me, so I shot them," I don't know what Gotham City's gun laws are, but it's one of those things where he would have come off as a much more sympathetic character to others, even Robert De Niro's character, if he had done that, as opposed to, just laughing at it like it was funny, but of course that's him being a psychopath. But he was sympathetic. I mean, when he killed those guys, they were pricks. And in fact, it was kind of cool how even the girl, when and then we find out it was all a dream, right? She's like, oh, they deserved it. I think they deserved it. And you can kind of, that's when I was like, okay, well, she's a little crazy too, right? It was all a dream. That's not even who she really was. You know what I'm saying? And that was totally, what a great movie. What a great freaking movie. God. And I looked at Rotten Tomatoes yesterday just to see the difference between the critics and the audience. And I think it was at 92% audience, 69% critics. Yeah, again, we need to not listen to these people. We need to not read reviews from them. They need to speak into the ether, because these movie fans aren't even real movie fans. Just being real with you. And yeah, the movie does borrow a lot from the king of comedy and from Taxi Driver, classic Scorsese films, but it does it in such a genuine, loving way. And even though it does borrow from them, it's still a great film in itself on its own. You can't knock it for being inspired by classic films. Classic films create other classic films. That's just how it is. Quentin Tarantino was inspired by many, many classic films for his classic films. And so I don't think that's a real big knock on the movie, because not everything can be inventive, and not everything, no idea is truly original when you think about it, but it was done so well. It really was like, what if Taxi Driver was the Joker, in a way, except that I feel like the Taxi Driver character was trying to do good, whereas as this film progresses, Arthur goes from trying to be a good person to just not caring about anybody. He really became a sociopath there. At first he was trying his best to fit in. I felt that from the character. He's got issues, he's got a therapist, obviously he's off his medication, so he changed. But man, like he really came off like a sympathetic guy, like a lovable loser in the first half of the movie, and then he just transforms. And but it just goes to show that people in the real world who are like this, sometimes they do start out being totally innocent, and then something, or a series of events changes them, and the movie portrayed that so well. Also, the movie theater scene where Bruce Wayne's parents got shot giving birth to the Batman, unnecessary for this movie. I thought it was not necessary. You didn't need that scene in there at all, but it was, well, people are going to be talking about it. They're doing a sequel, and I hope they don't do it. This is actually a movie where I don't want a sequel to this, because we already know what the sequel is. We've seen the sequel and read the sequel for years. It's Batman. It's the story of Batman, whether it be the whatever adaptation you like the most, Dark Knight, Tim Burton, doesn't matter. The Joker and Batman feud forever, right? We know this. There's no need to make a movie following this up. Obviously, Joaquin Phoenix's performance was great, but he's also very picky when it comes to scripts. And if they do a sequel that's just a Batman movie, he might not even do it, and it won't be the same without him, because he was the life and blood of this the lifeblood of this character. I did like the scene though, with what happened to Thomas Wayne, because it was a nice little Easter egg. It was kind of like a reminder to the audience, like, yeah, this is Batman. This is the story of Batman, even though it's a story of Joker. But it wasn't something that was needed for the plot of this movie. They could have just saved that for a future story in time, or they could have just done that at a different time, or not even had Thomas Wayne get killed on screen. But they did it, and it's funny because, I mean, it's not funny, but it's interesting how we've seen Thomas Wayne get shot how many times? Don't forget they had that scene at the beginning of Justice League where he gets killed there. So they just love to show that to us, don't they? Was it Justice League or BV? I think it was Justice League. But anyways, yeah, those movies don't hold a candle to this movie. I'm sorry, but there has not been a single DCEU movie, including Wonder Woman, that can touch this one, bro. Including Shazam. And I love Shazam and Wonder Woman. Aquaman was fun. They couldn't touch this movie, bro. As far as like a film goes, like an actual like well-directed, well-scripted, well-performed, a narrative, an arc of a character. What makes a great story is a character, following a character going from point A to point B. How does Arthur Dent, I did it again, didn't I? How does Arthur Fleck, why am I keep thinking about Harvey Dent? Maybe because, it's Batman, but how does Arthur Fleck go from being this mentally ill guy? He's mentally ill, but he's not violent, right? He's not really a violent guy. But he got beat up by those punks at the beginning of the movie. That was one. Abused by his boss, lied to by his mother. So his whole worldview is shattered when he's over here thinking a certain thing about his life, and then his entire worldview is shattered when he finds out the truth, then the real truth. I mean, that could mess somebody up for real, bro. Think about that for a minute. Put yourself in his shoes. Not saying to do what he did, but think about what would happen if you found out your mother did this and that and then lied to you, all that stuff. So, that happened. Then he gets beat up on the subway again. And then I love how they go back to the subway and those two cops chase him and they wind up getting pummeled. That was such good writing because it was brilliant because he didn't really even do anything. He ran away. Then other people on the train got caught up in the problem, and then one dude got shot on accident. The cops got beat up and they got killed or whatever. And he's just kind of laughing at them. He didn't even do anything. His first true kill, with the exception of those guys that tested him, his first true, act of violence that was actual murder, besides his mother, was when he went on the talk show, with a gun. That wasn't because everybody had done something to him except for Murray Franklin. But the reality is that Murray Franklin did do something to him. Murray Franklin made fun of him. Remember, this is a dude who Arthur had idolized. He idolized this man since childhood, it seemed, or not childhood, but for years he idolized him, wanted to be on the show, wanted to be his son in that in that scene where you're inside of his head or whatever. He wanted to be his son, dude. And yet, think about that. He wanted to be his son, and the dude made fun of him. Now, later on, he invited him onto the show. So, I mean, there was sort of a thing where he was trying to make peace with him, even though Joker took it as him making fun of him. But still, everybody who he looked up to, who he admired, had betrayed him in one way or another, except for the freaking little person. He kissed him on the head and said, "You're the only one who what do you say? You're the only one who's ever been a real friend," or something like that. That's very telling of this character, that he did that. So in other words, he's not like the Heath Ledger character who would just kill his own guys with no remorse and want chaos. This guy actually has a weird sense of loyalty, a twisted sense of it. What a great movie, bro. I'm over here rambling because I'm marking out right now. What a great movie. Joker was amazing. There'll be a lot more to talk about in the future, I'm sure, with this film. I really enjoyed this film a lot. What a great freaking movie. Thank you again. Hope y'all have a great day. Let me know in the comments. Let's talk spoilers, man, because what a great ending, too, man. What a dark ending. What a dark ending. He became the symbol for revolution or whatever. I love this movie. God, I love this movie. Go see it I'm sure you already saw it, but go see it again.